Hello everyone, this is Rick. Welcome to an episode on the Lahore session, August offer, and the CRIPPS mission. This video is designed according to the syllabus of ISC board of class 12. However, if you are from any other board or if you are interested to know about Indian history, then you can go through this video. And also, I suggest you to carry a notebook with you while you go through this so that you can note down the important points. You can also listen to this video as an audio. So, this video is on an important chapter of modern Indian history, that is Lahore Session, August Offer, and the CRIPPS mission. In this video, we discuss the important political events which happened during the Second World War. So, let's begin. Now, before we discuss about Lahore session, we must have a recapitulation of our last video, that is on Congress ministries. We all know that after the 1935 Government of India Act, there was an election held in 1937, and Congress dominated those elections by winning 7 out of 11 provinces in the British Indian subcontinent. However, because of numerous reasons, they resigned on 1939, and that day of resignation is called the Day of Deliverance. So let's go through that once more. So, Government of India Act 1935. The act led to elections where Congress formed ministries in 7 out of 11 provinces. So, they a whole of Indian subcontinent, that is undivided British India, was divided into 11 provinces, and Congress formed ministries in 7 of them. And in rest of the provinces, that is in rest 4 provinces, there were coalition ministries which were formed in 2 among the other 4 provinces. So that was the history of election which happened due to the Government of India Act. Resignation of the Congress ministries, November 1939. So, all the ministries of Congress resigned on November 1939. And what was the cause behind it? The Viceroy's unilateral decision to move India in World War II without consulting the central legislature or provincial governments led to the Congress's resignation. So, the British Empire participated in World War II against the coalition of Germany, Italy, and Japan. Now, you may think that what has India got to do with it? But, like you see in Hollywood movies, it was not the Europeans alone who fought the war. A large number of British soldiers constituted of Indian people, Indian army was at that point of time under the Britishers. Hence, a large number of Indian soldiers participated in World War. And also, British Empire, in order to fund the World War, they took huge resources from India. And all of these things were done without consulting any of the Indian people or their representatives. So the Congress ministries thought that what for are we present? If you don't take our opinion before dragging our country to war, what is the need of us? Hence, all of them resign, that we are being made useless by the British government, and as a protest of that, we are resigning. Muslim League's reaction. Now, the same reaction, the reaction of resignation, as was the reaction of Congress, that same kind of resignation did not happen with the members of Muslim League. The Muslim League, led by Muhammad Ali Jinnah, celebrated Congress's resignation, seeing it as a political opportunity. So, the Muslim League, this is a concept that needs to be clear. Congress was fighting for India's freedom, and India as in undivided India. You may hate the Congress, you may like the Congress, you may have differences of opinion regarding the freedom struggle methods used by Congress, but their general motive was to get India's independence. But the motive of the Muslim League was to get facilities for the Muslims. The first priority was to get facilities for the Muslims who were present in the Indian subcontinent. Their reaction or whatever they did, their intention was never i- India's freedom. Their intention was to get facilities from the British government for the Muslims. And that ground was open for the Muslim League now, because the Congress was not there anymore. Hence, they can be eye candy of the Britishers. Thus, they celebrated the resignation of Congress. Day of Deliverance, 22nd December 1939. Jinnah declared this as a day of symbolic protest against Congress rule, urging Muslims to observe it as a relief from Congress policies. So they considered that Congress was an obstruction to Muslims getting all the facilities from the British Empire, because Congress was mainly dominated by Hindu leaders. Therefore, they considered this day as a day of deliverance, and they launched symbolic protest against the Congress rule, and they urged all the Muslims to observe this day. Political implications. The resignation marked a crucial turning point, intensifying communal divisions and strengthening the Muslim League's demand for a separate Muslim state. As I have said, the demand of Muslim League was to divide India communally. Hence, there should be a separate Muslim state. And that demand was getting a lot of strength because Congress was no more there to oppose it. The next point is impact of Congress ministry's resignation and Muslim League's response. So the Congress ministries resigned. What was the impact of that resignation? What was the result of that resignation? Tactical blunder by the Congress. The resignation weakened Congress's influence, leaving it out of power during the crucial years of World War II. So, because of the resignation, now the Congress is not a part of government anymore. Hence, it does not have any legal influence over how India will be governed. Thus, it was out of war, and those days World War II was going on. Hence, it was very significant to have Congress in the governing committee at least. But during the crucial years of World War II, Congress could not give any opinion, or Congress could not play any part in the governmental policies. British strategy. The British government exploited the situation by reinforcing communal divisions and supporting Muslim League. So British strategy was divide and rule. The more India will be divided, more easier it is for the Britishers to dominate over Indians. Hence, they exploited the situation of Congress's ministry's resignation, and they fueled communal divisions by supporting the Muslim League. Congress Muslim League conflict. Both Congress and Muslim League were poles apart. Hence, Congress tried to win over a support from the Muslim League. Thus, they offered two seats in UP provincial government to the Muslim League under a few conditions, but Muslim League rejected, feeling politically marginalized. The goodwill of the Congress was shown by offering two seats to the Muslim League, but that offer was rejected by the Muslim League. Pirpur Commission. Now the Congress, uh, it was something against the Congress. The Muslim League said that Congress people committed atrocities towards the Muslims in India. It was a twisted fact. It was an allegation. It was a propaganda. But the Muslim League believed on it, and hence the Muslim League formed this commission. It was to be led by the Nawab of Pirpur. And what was the work of this commission? It was to investigate and propagate allegations of Congress atrocities against the Muslims. So, the Muslim League believed that the Congress has committed a lot of atrocities against the Muslim, and they appointed the Nawab of Pirpur, who led a committee, and that work of committee was to investigate those allegations of atrocities against the Muslims by the Congress. Anti-Congress propaganda. Reports like Muslims suffering under Congress by Bengal Premier Fajlul Haq accused Congress of failing to prevent communal riots. So Fajlul Haq was the Premier of Bengal, the leader of Bengal, and he was in coalition with the Muslim League, and he raised propagandic slogans like Muslims are suffering under Congress. And this he raised because Congress failed to prevent the communal riots. Congress also banned cow slaughter in a few places because cow is a sacred animal for the Hindus. Hindus worship cow even now, and this is an ancient practice because of religious reason, and to support the Hindus, to support the Indian general public, Congress banned cow slaughter. Now this was against the policies of the Muslim League and encouraged the use of Hindi. Congress also supported Hindi language, and thus the Muslim League twisted and represented all these policies of Congress to polarize Hindu Muslim relations. Now, what was the Lahore session of Muslim League and what is two nation theory? In the Lahore session, we will have to understand the background. Why did Lahore session happen? So, in the background of Lahore session, the demand for a separate Muslim state in India was formally articulated during the Muslim League's Lahore session held from 22nd to 24th March 1940. So, there was a demand for a separate nation, a nation where there will be only Muslim people among the Muslim League. This demand was raised by the Orthodox Muslims in India and the Muslim League. So this demand was organized and presented in a proper way in the Lahore session. Role of Muhammad Iqbal. The idea of Muslim state was first conceptualized by Allama Iqbal in 1930 in Allahabad session of the Muslim League, advocating for an autonomous Muslim majority region in northwestern India. So the northwestern part of undivided India had majority of Muslim population, and 10 years before this Lahore session, the Muslim League had Allahabad session, and in that Allahabad session, Muhammad Iqbal said that there must be a Muslim majority nation in Western India where only Muslims will rule, and that happened in Allahabad session 10 years before Lahore session, and Muhammad Iqbal played a main role by conceptualizing the idea of a Muslim state, which later on turned to be Pakistan. Rahmat Ali's concept of Pakistan. A group of Cambridge Muslim students, these were students who were Muslims and who were educated in Cambridge University, and they were led by another person named Chaudhry Rahmat Ali. He coined the name Pakistan using the initials of Punjab, Afghan, which is Northwest Frontier Province, Kashmir, Sindh, and Balochistan. So P from Punjab, A from Afghan, K from Kashmir, S from Sindh, and Baluchistan. From the name Baluchistan, they took Tan, and hence the name Pakistan came into being. Many Pakistanis and many people claim that Pakistan actually means the land of peace. The word Pakistan actually means the land of peace, but that is not the truth. This is how the name of Pakistan came into being. It is the short form of all the Muslim majority regions which together makes Pakistan. That is Punjab, Afghan, Kashmir, Sindh and Balochistan. Kashmir is a legal part of India. All the Indians must know this and be proud of it, that Kashmir is a state of India, but Pakistan has illegally occupied it. A few portion of Kashmir has been illegally occupied by Pakistan. Balochistan is protesting against Pakistan. Afghan is not in Pakistan anymore. So the concept of Pakistan is totally fragile even in today's world. It is uh, it is a egoistic state which has been formed with no historical background except the ideological motives of few important Orthodox Muslim rulers. Jinnah's two nation theory. Muhammad Ali Jinnah declared that Hindus and Muslims were two distinct nations with different cultures, histories, and identities, making joint governance impractical. But Muslims have been living in India since independence, and their population in India is increasing. It is hard to disagree that there have been minor instances of conflict between Hindus and Muslims, but altogether, India is a very peaceful nation and it has about 14% Muslim in it who are very peacefully living in India. Therefore, the concept of Jinnah and his declaration that Hindus and Muslims are two distinct nations, India in today's world has proved that to be false. Jinnah was wrong in declaring that Hindus and Muslims cannot live together. Hence, the two nation theory is totally flawed. Lahore resolution. What happened in the Lahore resolution? The resolution, later termed the Pakistan resolution, formally demanded independent Muslim states, laying the foundation for the creation of Pakistan in 1947. So this was for the first time it was written that the Muslim League's agenda is to demand Pakistan. Their agenda was not to demand Indian independence from the Britishers. Their agenda was to demand Pakistan, which was to be a total Muslim state. And eventually they succeeded, and Pakistan was created in 1947. Now, impact of Lahore session and conditional support for the British. What was the impact of Lahore session and what do you mean by the conditional support? These events happened during the years 1940 to 1942. Strengthening of the Muslim League. The Lahore session marked the shift of the Muslim League from an advocate of autonomy to a proponent of complete partition. So, this Lahore session, the motive of the Muslim League changed. At first, there was the motive of Muslim League was to advocate for the autonomy of Muslims in India, means independence or free decision making power for the Muslim in India. But later on, they demanded a complete state. Hence, complete state was possible only if there was complete partition. Therefore, their demand was complete partition of India. Congress response. Congress strongly opposed Jinnah's demand, asserting India's unity and rejecting the idea of religiously divided state. So, according to Congress, the demand of Muhammad Ali Jinnah cannot be agreed upon because it is dividing India on religious basis, which does not have any basis, which does not have any ideology, which is a cheap sided ideology. According to Congress, India has always been united. There have been diversity, but still we are united, and that should be focused upon. British strategy and World War II. With the outbreak of World War II, the British sought Indian political cooperation. Now, when the World War II broke out, Britishers wanted India's political cooperation, because without India's help, there would not be any funding for the war, and there will not be people for the British army, because most of the people in British army were the people from the colonies, and India was the golden goose for the British empire. So Congress ministries resigned in 1939 while Muslim extended conditional support to Britain. However, Congress did a tactical blunder by resigning in 1939, so they were no more in a position to express any kind of opinion regarding the governance of India. But the Muslim League extended conditional support to Britain because they needed a separate state from Britain, and that state eventually turned out to be Pakistan. So, Congress's conditional support resolution. Congress also supported Britain during the World War years. So, Congress agreed to support the British war effort if only if India was granted a constituent assembly to frame its own constitution. So, India will have to be granted a constituent assembly where different influential and knowledgeable people will come together and form a constituent assembly to make a constitution for India. Now, Congress demanded a constitution for India, not constitution for India other than Pakistan. They did not demand two different constitution. Hence, if this support, if the Britishers granted a constituent assembly for India, then the dream of Pakistan would have vanished. Therefore, the Muslim League's condition was that the League demanded that no constitutional reform be made without its approval, ensuring that Muslim interests were safeguarded. They wanted Pakistan anyhow, so they cannot agree to the formation of constituent assembly, they cannot agree to the making of a single constitution, because single constitution means no separate nation. Therefore, they put this condition to the British empire that no decision regarding constitution can be made without our approval, and the British ignored both the demands, leading to further tensions. Now, what was the August offer and why was it rejected by the Congress? The announcement of August offer, 8th August 1940. Viceroy Lord Linlithgow announced the August offer, rejecting Congress's proposal for provisional national government. So, Congress proposed for a provisional national government, means a temporary independent government. That was the demand of Congress. That demand was rejected, and in return, the British announced the August offer. Proposals of the August offer. What were the main things granted to in the August offer? Now, this was wartime period. Second World War was going on. Hence, to secure the support of the Indians, Britishers wanted to give some gifts. What were those gifts? They were the proposals of the August offer. Dominion status would be granted to India after the war. So after the war ends, and by that time no one knew when the world will when the war will end. So Dominion status would be granted after the war. They did not mention a date. They just said that after the war, India will be a dominion under the British Empire. They will function independently, but they will be under the British Empire, which is basically fake independence. So, dominion status would be granted to India after the war. They said this when they did not know when the war will end, and if at all they will win in the war. Nothing was sure at that point of time, but still they offered that dominion status would be granted to India after the war. A constituent assembly would be formed to draft a new constitution. So people will be selected from India and they will be making a new constitution. Muslim rights and interest will be safeguarded, ensuring their support for any new constitution. So Muslim, in order to appease the Muslim League and their orthodox rulers, Britishers also said that the interest, the wantings of the Muslim people would be safeguarded. Now, this was impossible because if you safeguard the demand for Pakistan, then how can you draft a new constitution? Because the demand for Pakistan itself demands two new constitutions. So it was totally meaningless offer. Indian representation was to be increased in the Viceroy's Legislative Council. So, this also proves the statement itself, Viceroy's Legislative Council. So, it is not India's Legislative Council, it is Viceroy's Legislative Council. No matter how many members are increased, how many Indians go into Legislative Council, it is still not India's Legislative Council, it is Viceroy's. Therefore, India was to be given a fake independence. The War Advisory Committee will be established, including Indian rulers, to assist the government. So, the main objection of the Congress was that Britishers participated in the war and they agreed to the fact that Indians will die for the Britishers in the war fought in Europe, and why they did not do this by asking any Indian. So that was the main conflict. Hence, the Britisher said that War Advisory Committee will be formed. Rejection by the Congress. The Congress rejected the offer because it did not provide for a provisional national government. It did not give a temporary national government to the Indian. It gave dominion status to the Indian, that also after the war, when no one knew when the war will end and if at all Britishers will win in the war or not. It favored Muslim League, strengthening anti-Congress forces. It favored Muslim League means it favored the making of two different nations, and that was against the motive of the Congress. Individual satyagraha movement was launched by Gandhi, and he selected Acharya Vinoba Bhave to lead the movement. Jawaharlal Nehru and Vallabhbhai Patel, right and left hand of Gandhi, were arrested. The movement ended in December 1941 due to its limited impact. However, individual satyagraha movement was one of the few movements of Gandhi which did not have any impact as such. So that was all about the August offer and why was it rejected by the Congress. The CRIPPS mission and its proposal. Again in 1942, Sir Stafford Cripps came to India bearing some gifts because they needed India's support for the World War. Context of the Cripps mission. The first context means in what situation Cripps mission was happening. So Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor, this was a significant event in world history because USA was not participating in the war until December 1941. In December 1941, Japan destroyed almost the whole Pacific fleet of USA, and thus USA got hurt and participated in the war. That attack of Japan on USA was the attack on Pearl Harbor. Japan occupied Burma and marched towards Assam, threatening British India. So, Japan occupied the eastern portion of Asia, the southeastern portion, that is Burma, which is present day Myanmar. All those areas were occupied, and Japan was about to enter India. What is not mentioned in the syllabus is that it was not Japan actually which was trying to enter India. It was the revolutionary forces of Indian National Army led by the great Subhas Chandra Bose. So Subhas Chandra Bose was almost in the doorway of India from the east. Britain sought Indian cooperation in the war and sent Sir Stafford Cripps, a member of the British War Cabinet, to India. So at this time, Japan is very powerful and Subhas Chandra Bose is almost about to conquer India. Therefore, India will get out of the hands of the British, and hence Britain tried to manage the situation by sending a person named Sir Stafford Cripps, who was to negotiate India's support for the World War. Arrival and negotiations. Cripps arrived in India on 22nd March 1942. He met with the leaders, all the influential leaders of political parties like Congress, Muslim League, Hindu Mahasabha, it was a religious organization and a social organization. Harijans means the lower class of Indians or the lower class of Hindus, and native rulers means rulers who governed independently under the British rule. So, all these sections of different Indian people with different political motives were interacted by Cripps when he arrived on 22nd March 1942. On 30th March 1942, he announced his draft declaration. So, after meeting for like 8 or 9 days, on 30th March, he announced his draft declaration. What were the proposals in that declaration? Dominion status would be granted after the war, allowing India to secede to the British Commonwealth. Again, the same problem. Just like August offer, they said that Dominion status would be granted to India after the war, but they did not say any date. Not saying any date means no one knows when it will happen, and no one knows when the war will end, and no one also knows that if at all Britain will win the war or not. So, what is the value of this proposal? Dominion status means nothing if you don't tell the date. A constituent assembly will be established with members from British India and the native states. So, again, members will be selected and constituent assembly will be established to form a new constitution. Provinces could opt out of Indian Union and stay under the British rule. So, here is where they are playing again the divisive policy of divide and rule. In India, there were numerous areas which were governed by kings. They were called the princely states. So imagine that whole of India is getting independence, but few of the princely states, they are wanting to stay within the British Empire. This was impossible. This was impossible on geographical context and economic context also. If India were to be independent, whole of India must be independent. You cannot select specific areas and give them independence. That was the point raised by the Indian general people. Defense and military operations during the war would remain under the British control. So they will send us to die in the war on behalf of the Britishers. They will not give us any independence, and even if they give us independence, few areas, if they want, they will be under the British Empire. So that is how useless and baseless Cripps mission was. It was an updated version of the August offer. Impact. The Congress rejected the plan, demanding immediate self rule. So, Congress said that no more negotiations, we want freedom right now. We want to rule ourselves without any foreign interference. While the Muslim League found it inadequate for Pakistan's creation, and Muslim League's only one concern is to get a separate nation for the Muslim. They don't care about independence. But that demand was also not there within the proposals of the Cripps mission. Hence, the failure of Cripps mission led to Quit India movement, and Quit India movement will be the discussion for our next video. It happened in August 1942. Now we will go through the 4 marks question and answers, and these question and answers are not only the things which may come in your exam, but if you go through these question and answers, then you will be able to understand the topic better. Give one reason for sending the CRIPPS mission to India. The CRIPPS mission, March 1942, was sent by the British government to secure Indian support for World War II. The British faced a severe threat from Japan, which had advanced towards India's eastern borders after capturing Burma. The British aimed to gain Congress and Muslim League cooperation by offering a post war dominion status to India. Another reason was pressure from the Allied nations, particularly the USA and China, to involve India in the war effort. Who was Stafford Cripps? Sir Stafford Cripps was a British politician, lawyer, and member of the War Cabinet during World War II. He was sent to India in March 1942 to negotiate with Indian leaders and offer dominion status after the war. His proposals allowed Indian provinces to opt out of the Union, which led to Congress rejecting them. He played a key role in Britain's war economy and later became Chancellor of the Exchequer in 1947. Why did Congress and the Muslim League reject the proposals of the CRIPPS mission? Congress rejected the proposals because it demanded immediate self rule, not post war independence. The British retained defense and military control, which Congress opposed. The offer to let provinces opt out of Indian Union was seen as divisive. The Muslim League rejected the proposals because it did not explicitly recognize Pakistan. Jinnah feared Hindu majority dominance if India became a dominion. Who remarked that Cripps' proposals were a post dated check on a crashing bank? Mahatma Gandhi made this famous remark criticizing the Cripps mission's proposals. He compared them to the false promise as they only offered dominion status after the war. Gandhi believed that Britain was already weakening in the war and could not enforce its promises. The phrase implied that the British were offering something they might never be able to deliver. What were the objections raised by the Congress to Cripps' proposals? Congress rejected Cripps' proposals due to the following reasons. It did not grant immediate independence, only post war self rule. The British retained control of defense and military operations, limiting Indian autonomy. The clause allowing provinces to remain outside the Indian Union was seen as an attempt to divide India. There was no clear commitment to fully sovereign Indian government, making it unacceptable to Congress. Why did Cripps' mission fail? The Cripps mission failed because both Congress and the Muslim League rejected its proposals. Congress demanded an immediate transfer of power, which the British refused. The Muslim League opposed it because it did not include a clear Pakistan demand. British officials, including Winston Churchill, were unwilling to grant India full independence at that stage. Now, answer writing strategies. We will discuss about what are the points you should follow while writing 8 marks answers, and thus there are a few points which are to be noted. Proper structure that must include introduction, main points, and conclusion. Balanced perspective. You should not be swayed or partial towards any entities or any events. So, achievements and failures both should be written. Data oriented approach. Facts, acts, and policies should be described. What were the circumstances that led the British government to send the CRIPPS mission in 1942? What were the major recommendations? This question came in ISC 2000. Introduction. The CRIPPS mission, March 1942, was sent to India by British War Cabinet to seek Indian cooperation in World War II. It was led by Sir Stafford Cripps, a senior British politician. Circumstances leading to Cripps' mission. Japanese threat. Japan had captured Burma and was advancing towards India's eastern borders. Pressure from allies. USA and China pressured Britain to gain Indian support. Growing nationalist movements. Congress had boycotted war efforts demanding independence. Continued. Major recommendations of the CRIPPS mission. Dominion status would be granted to India after the war. A constituent assembly would be formed to draft the constitution. Provinces could opt out of Indian Union if they wished. British control over defense would continue during the war. Conclusion. The CRIPPS mission failed as both Congress and Muslim League rejected its proposals, leading to Quit India movement August 1942. Why did Indian political parties and native states reject the proposals of the CRIPPS mission? Introduction. The CRIPPS mission's proposals were seen as insufficient and divisive, leading to rejection by both Congress and the Muslim League. Reasons for rejection. Congress rejection. No immediate independence was promised. British retained control over defense and military affairs. The clause allowing provinces to secede was viewed as an attempt to divide India. Continued. Muslim League's rejection. The proposals did not explicitly mention the creation of Pakistan. Jinnah feared a Hindu majority dominance in post war India. Native states' opposition. Princely states felt threatened by the rise of Indian Republic. The British reassured them of their autonomy, weakening their support. Conclusion. The failure of Cripps' mission led directly to Quit India movement, marking a turning point in Indian independence struggle. So that was all about the few major movements which happened during World War II. In our next video, we are going to go into detail about the Quit India movement, which is the last significant movement of Mahatma Gandhi and the movement which rattled the British Empire, especially the colonial policies of the British Empire. Hope you have liked this video. Please note down the important points. You will gain a lot which will help you in your exams. Thank you for your love and support.